One of the most improbable comebacks and one of the best wins of the year for the Texans. Welcome into the channel. I'm Cody Stoots. Let's talk some Texans as they steal one from Tennessee, completing the comeback to force it to overtime and then winning in overtime on the foot of the returning Ka'imi Fairbairn. 19-16, your final score. Here are your four big takeaways from the game presented by our friends at J Bar M. Check them out, 2201 Leland down there in Edo. The four big takeaways, we start with DeMeco Ryans and the totality of the challenge that this game presented. With no C.J. Stroud, with no Will Anderson, with no Nico Collins, with no Blake Cashman, even with Jimmy Ward leaving shortly after the game got started, there were so many challenges and potential excuses for the Texans to overcome, and they overcame almost every single one of them in pursuit of this victory. No Will Anderson, the defensive line takes care of business. No Blake Cashman, the linebackers ball out. No C.J. Stroud, Case Keenum does enough to win the game for the Texans. DeMeco Ryans and his crew, from the staff to the players to the support staff to everybody, to Nick Caserio, who helped put this team together, everybody deserves a congratulations on one of the toughest, hard-fought wins of the entire NFL season for any team. I mean, how many teams? I know we've seen backup quarterback conversations over the course of this season in the NFL, but how many teams jump their second guy to their third guy in a pretty risky move and then ultimately have that pay off for them? Well, let me tell you how many people do it. The Texans do it. That's it. Nobody else jumped their second guy on the depth chart for their third guy and made it happen on a Sunday like the Texans did against this Titans team. Just a gutty, impressive performance. DeMeco Ryans had the defense ready to bounce back. Sure, there's some moments that I would be super critical of Bobby Slowick within this game and over the course of this game, but ultimately called a good enough game, put Case Keenum in a situation to succeed. Case Keenum paid off for the staff that had the belief in him. It was a really impressive performance, top to bottom. It's not perfect, but I tell you what, there's no committee deciding who makes the playoffs. You only make the playoffs based on wins and losses, and in a situation where the Texans desperately needed a win. They got a win, and they got the gutsiest, grittiest, grinded it outest, most win of the season. That's a big takeaway, number one. Number two of the big takeaways brought to you by our friends at J Bar M. This defense was damn near lights out against Levis and company. Will Levis had, I believe, 77 passing yards on the first drive that ended in a touchdown. He hit the big one down the sideline that DeMeco Ryans challenged. He hit the one over the middle to Treylon Burks. He had a couple of dump-offs on that one. So 77 yards passing on that opening drive. He finished with 199. He finished with 199 passing yards on the day after having 77 on the opening drive. The Texans did a great job limiting him through the air, putting pressure on him, making him make quick decisions when they did get pressure on him. And when they didn't get pressure on him, look, he made some plays, but the Texans were there to take advantage of some of them. He had some iffy plays where the Texans knocked the ball away. Steven Nelson had an incredible interception when Levis made the wrong decision with the football. It was a really impressive pass-stopping performance, and that was only beaten by their ability to stop the run on Sunday. Derrick Henry, we know about his history with this Texans team. We know he has ruled over the Texans in his time in the National Football League. And coming into this game, Henry was coming off of 3 straight games with 2 touchdowns. Okay, 3 straight games coming into this one with 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry's official stat line, 16 carries for 9 yards. Denzel Perryman was flying around. Christian Harris was flying around. Those guys were all over Derrick Henry, Tyjae Spears. Even when Levis got mobile and was running around trying to make something happen, they punished him out there in the open field when Levis got going. The defensive performance was incredible. They allowed the touchdown on the opening drive. We mentioned it, 77 passing yards, and then the Titans basically had to fight, scratch, and claw for every single bit and piece of offense that they got from that moment on. And man, the Texans defensive line was ferocious. Jonathan Grenard's career season continues. He's been incredible. Sheldon Rankins was in on those plays. Malik Collins on Derrick Henry and on Will Levis. A well-timed D'Amico Ryans cornerback blitz saw Desmond King get in there in the last little bit there in overtime to get to Will Levis on the play where he left the game. And Derek Barnett, who's filling in for the injured Will Anderson, he took care of business as well as a backup player, as a depth piece for this team. Khalil Davis got a sack as well in the interior defensive line. The defensive line was lighting up the Titans, and that's a huge bounce-back performance overall by the defensive line that had some iffy moments against Zach Wilson and company a week ago, and then certainly the linebackers and the secondary had a rough week last week. They bounced back in a huge degree. That's why the defense is big takeaway number 2. Without this performance, we're not talking about a Texans win. Big takeaway number 3 is Case Keenum's day. The big takeaway is brought to you by our friends at J Bar M. Case Keenum, look, he had the pick 6 early on. I thought that could really sink the Texans, but Keenum shrugged it off. His teammates shrugged it off, and he went back out there and started to take care of business. It took him a minute to get settled in. He's only started 2 games in the past 3 seasons. He's really only even played in those couple of games over the past 3 seasons. So after he knocked a little bit of the rust off, he started to find Noah Brown over the middle. He found Dalton Schultz a couple of times as he sort of settled in and got some things going there. And yeah, there are a couple of moments that I'm sure Keenum would want back. He almost threw an interception over on the sideline where the Titans defender just had it fly through his hands. He almost had a couple of near misses here and there. Dalton Schultz saved his bacon by ripping away an interception when Keenum just kind of threw it up and hoped for the best. Well, Dalton Schultz made him right in that moment. But Keenum did enough. I understand that it was hey, he's a veteran. He's been here. He's been in big games. We trust him not to make a mistake. Well, he made that big mistake early and then sort of calmed down. Didn't make too many terrible game-breaking, back-breaking mistakes from that moment on and settled in finally and started zipping the ball around. And I was worried about his arm strength. I was worried about his ability to get the ball down the field. Once he kind of got warmed up and, again, knocked the rust off, Keenum was putting it where he needed to put it. I believed it was a risky decision to go to Keenum instead of Davis Mills in this one. Well, the risk paid off outside of the giant mistake on the pick 6, and Keenum took a lot of blame for that one in the postgame when he was at the podium. Outside of the giant pick 6, Keenum had a pretty nice day for this Texans team and did just enough for the offense and the performance that the Texans needed out of Case Keenum. That's big takeaway number 3. Our final big takeaway brought to you by our friends at J Bar M. Devin Singletary, hello. Welcome back to the land of effective rushing offense. Devin Singletary, he was incredible. The makeshift offensive line that was missing George Fant was opening up holes for him. He was gliding through them. It looked like that Cincinnati game. It looked like that Arizona game. And then even when he was getting contacted, he was making the Titans pay for it. Some tough running, some really impressive running from Devin Singletary. He's clearly the running back that you got to go to, and you wonder if the Texans have figured it out on the ground, if they've unlocked something on offense when it comes to running the football, and you add that in with a return from C.J. Stroud, hopefully next week against the Browns, man, that could be a really impressive, nasty, and fun offense that the Texans could put together if Singletary can replicate what he did against this Titans team a couple more times here in the regular season. I tell you what, if he's doing that in the regular season, the Texans are playing in the postseason, and hopefully Devin Singletary's got one of those games left in him. I thought that in overtime, after the Texans got the ball the first time, they probably should have given the ball to him just a little bit more. But that second drive in overtime, Keenum finds him on the extended play over on the right side. They ran the ball with him a couple more times, and if it wasn't for the Mechie hold, he finishes the game with 6 instead of the Texans finishing that thing with 3. Those are your 4 big takeaways brought to you by J Bar M. I could go on and on and on and on and on about all the fantastic performances. I will throw one more in there. Welcome back, Kaimi Fairbairn, who should be the AFC Special Teams Player of the Week. A couple of 50-yard plus field goals in this one. He took care of business, and the Texans had a lot of faith there in overtime. They didn't need to run one more play. They felt like Keenum could make it. He did. They take care of business, and the Texans stick around in that wild, crowded AFC playoff hunt with the Bengals and the Colts and the Browns all winning before the Texans finish this thing up. The Texans desperately needed a win to keep pace with those teams, and they did just that. They'll still need a tiny bit of help if they're not going to be perfect down the stretch, but the Texans, if they take care of their business all the way through, they should find themselves in the playoffs. Don't want to get too far ahead with Tennessee in a couple of weeks and the Colts to finish it. The Cleveland Browns, still red hot on the arm of Joe Flacco, come to town next week. Hopefully CJ Stroud's back for that one. Plenty more to get to on this game. Check out Houston Football, where I do all my writing about this. The 11 observations from the game are up on Houston Football. The link is in the description down below. You can also find out about our friends J-Bar M in the description down below. Incredible barbecue, a great atmosphere in the beer garden. It's a great place to watch all your bowl games. It's a great place to watch a Texans game. When baseball season gets here, it'll be incredible to watch the Stros. You can park there, walk to the game as well. Get out to J-Bar M, familiarize yourself with everything on their fantastic menu. And while you're down in the description on your way down there, throw me a thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. There's so much more to talk about with this incredible Texans team on the YouTube channel. You don't want to miss any of it. And you won't miss any of it if you subscribe and hit the little bell, turn on notifications so that you'll know when new videos pop up when we go live here on the channel as well. Appreciate you watching the video. Appreciate all the support here on the channel. I can't wait till we talk Texans again soon.